Incredible little girl transforms U.S. Marines Snowstorm struggle with a hidden necklace. Revela. Lucas sat in the dim light of his childhood home, the swirling snow outside casting shadows across the cluttered room. The once vibrant sounds of his small Midwestern town had dulled into an eerie silence, now punctuated only by the howling wind. He could feel the weight of expectation around him, a fresh veteran back from war, expected to slide effortlessly into a life that felt foreign and inaccessible. At 28, the Marine haircut that had once been a source of pride now felt like a shackle. Had he fought for this? To return and find nothing but bills piling up and empty job vacancies where there used to be opportunity? He grasped the edge of the coffee table, the rough wood grounding him momentarily against the racing thoughts swirling in his mind. He needed a plan. He needed something to hold on to. Desperation clawed at him as he envisioned his father, a former Marine himself, sitting across the room, arms crossed with a disappointed expression. "Work hard, son," his father would say, echoing in Lucas's thoughts like a cruel joke. "Never give up." But what if the effort didn't yield anything? What if the fight he was prepared for had no battlefield to claim victory on? As the storm raged on, Lucas's thoughts drifted to the struggles he had faced overseas. In those moments, he had felt invincible, a soldier with strength and purpose. Now, faced with the mundane challenges of civilian life, he felt like a ghost, walking through familiar rooms that seemed to remember his father's laughter more than his own. Anxiety tightened in his chest. What was he supposed to do? Climb back into a life that was slipping through his fingers like grains of sand? How could he hope to bring honor to his family name if he felt like nothing more than a burden? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he struggled with the weight of his internal turmoil, a soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. It was Ella, the vibrant girl from next door with her wild curls and adventurous spirit. What did she want? He hesitated, his heart thudding, not sure he could face another reminder of a world he no longer felt part of. But curiosity got the best of him. He opened the door, revealing the small figure bundled in her colorful coat, her small hand clutching something tightly. "I found something in the attic," she exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement, innocence shining through even the gusts of snow swirling around her. "It might belong to someone you know." The necklace dangled from her hand, old and worn, yet beautiful in a way that immediately drew him in. Lucas felt a mix of hope and apprehension surge within him as he studied her eager face. How could this little girl, filled with such light, see him as anything other than a fractured man? What weight did this heirloom carry for him, and who would it reveal him to be? Questions poured over him like the relentless snow, and he found himself longing for answers. As Ella stepped closer, the warmth radiating from her innocent determination cut through his unease. He felt the tension mount inside him, battling between the desire to connect and the fear of deepening his sense of inadequacy. Ella's innocent intrigue was a flicker of light in his dark, troubled realm. The blizzard outside paled in comparison to the storm of emotions raging within him. Would he have the courage to confront his past, or was he destined to remain a soldier lost in a world that had moved on without him? Lucas stood frozen at the door, caught between the need to preserve his facade and the urge to embrace the flicker of connection emanating from Ella. Her small fingers unfurled, revealing the weathered necklace. It glimmered faintly in the dim light, both a relic of the past and a beacon of something he couldn't quite name. A small, intricate charm hung from the chain, its design familiar, yet vaguely out of reach. "Can I show it to you?" Ella asked, her voice a melody of sincerity. He swallowed hard, the lump in his throat serving as a reminder of the weight he had long been trying to suppress. "Yeah, okay," he managed, stepping aside to allow her in. As she entered, the warmth of her presence contrasted starkly with the cold emptiness surrounding him. Ella placed the necklace on the coffee table and looked up at him, her eyes wide with expectation. Lucas studied the piece, his thoughts racing. Memories surfaced. Holiday gatherings around this very table, laughter echoing through the walls, and a distant comfort he had lost in the abyss of his service. Had this necklace been a decoration on one of those festive occasions, a passing whim of his father's? "I found it in the attic," she said, bringing him back from his reverie. "I thought you might want it back." A surge of emotion welled within him. This simple act of kindness from a child ignited a flickering flame of pride beneath his turmoil. Maybe he wasn't as lost as he believed. Could he reclaim parts of his past? And would that lead him to discover the man he needed to become? "What do you think it means?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. Ella shrugged, her brows furrowing slightly as she leaned forward, entirely engaged. "Maybe it reminds you of something important, something you forgot." Lucas exhaled slowly, torn between gratitude for her innocence and the unsettling sense of loss that accompanied it. Her words echoed in his mind, igniting a cautious spark of hope. What had he forgotten? In the chaos of war and the pain of returning home, had he unintentionally buried parts of himself that once brought him joy? Placing a hand on the cool metal of the necklace, he felt a flicker of connection to his past self. A soldier, yes, but also a son, a friend. This was something deeper than mere survival. It was about embracing a life rich with relationships and experiences. Yet still, self-doubt gnawed at him, whispering that he was unworthy of this chance at rediscovery. The expectations weighing down on him were suffocating, but Ella's presence inspired an attitude he thought he had lost. Resilience. "Maybe I could use some help with this," he finally said, surprising himself with the admission. The thought of engaging with his memories felt daunting, yet also like an uncharted territory he needed to traverse. "Can we look into it together?" Ella grinned, her enthusiasm infectious. A smirk crept onto Lucas's face for the first time in weeks, the corners lifting tentatively as he nodded. "Yeah, I think we should." As they sat across from one another, diving headfirst into the past, a flicker of clarity pierced his confusion. This connection was not just about a necklace, it was a path toward healing and self-rediscovery. Perhaps, with Ella leading the way, he could confront the daunting unknown of his own life. But even amidst this newfound resolve, an unsettling thought lingered. The deeper he ventured into the memories the necklace might evoke, the greater the risk of uncovering truths he had buried. A decision loomed on the horizon. What if he opened old wounds that would challenge the very essence of who he thought he was? The storm outside raged on, mirroring his internal struggle, forcing him to wonder, would unearthing these memories strengthen him, or shatter the fragile equilibrium he had begun to establish? Lucas stared at the necklace, his fingers gently brushing the intricate charm. Nostalgia stirred within him, a longing that battled with apprehension. Ella watched him intently, her innocent curiosity urging him to peel away the layers of his guarded heart. She was a child, but in that moment, she wielded a power he had not anticipated, the ability to coax him back to a version of himself he had buried under years of trauma. "Do you want to hear a story?" Ella asked, bridging the silence. Her voice snapped him back to the present, and he felt a flicker of responsibility pulse in his chest. The weight of his past was suffocating, yet here was this child, bright-eyed and hopeful, eager to share. "Sure," he replied, a knot of anxiety coiling in his stomach. "I think it belonged to your dad. He told me he found it during one of his adventures," she explained, her gaze absorbing every detail of his face. "He said it was a good luck charm." Lucas's heartbeat quickened. Memories surged. His father, always the storyteller, weaving tales of courage and bravery, urging him to be bold in life, to embrace every moment. What had happened to that Lucas? The one who felt joy in discovery rather than weight and responsibility. "Do you think it can bring me luck too?" he asked, testing the waters of this unexpected connection. "Of course, but you have to believe in it," she said, her eyes twinkling. Just like in his stories. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind. Belief was a luxury he had long abandoned. The war had stripped him of that innocent faith in the universe, leaving only the shadows of uncertainty. But the sincerity in her words invited him to explore this vulnerability further. If he dared to believe in luck, what might that mean for his shattered self? As the storm howled outside, shaping a cocoon of intimacy around them, Lucas felt a transformation beginning. It was not just about uncovering memories. It was about creating a new narrative, one where he could embrace failure and resilience alike. Perhaps Ella could lead him back to the light. But he also realized the burden of doing so rested on his shoulders. "What did your dad teach you about facing fears?" he asked, feeling a flicker of hope. That everybody has them. But stories help us face them better. You can always find courage in the tales of others." She paused and narrowed her eyes. "Like I'm helping you remember your own story." He pondered her words, acutely aware of the shift in dynamics between them. It wasn't just Ella guiding him. His acknowledgement of her wisdom was equally a part of that transformation. Could this simple exchange rekindle the fragments of bravery he had left behind? "I want to find out what I forgot," he said, his voice steadier now. Lucas took a deep breath, reaching again for the necklace as if it were a tether to something more than just memories. As his fingers gripped the cool metal, he felt a surge of energy flow through him, a determination to explore deeper into the past, to accept the challenges that lay within those buried memories. Yet, with anticipation came fear, a stark reminder of the precarious line he was about to walk. What truths lurked behind those memories? Would facing his father's stories evoke love, or would they darken the thresholds he had carefully built? "Ella," he started, hesitating as the potential for fear started taking root. "What if I'm not ready for everything I might find?" She looked at him thoughtfully. "Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. I know you can do it. Just remember, I'm here with you." As Lucas looked into her earnest eyes, the sound of thunder outside gave way to a newfound resolve. He would traverse this tumultuous journey one step at a time. But uncertainty weighed heavily. What demons would he awaken by choosing to engage with his past? In that charged moment, everything seemed possible, yet the fragility of his decision sent a shiver down his spine. As he braced himself, determined to confront whatever awaited, a gnawing question clung to the back of his mind, dripping with the tension of unspoken truths. Would he emerge from this exploration stronger, or would he find himself ensnared in a web of memories he wasn't prepared to unravel? Lucas drew a steadying breath, running his thumb over the necklace's charm, feeling the cool surface awaken a flicker of courage within him. The storm outside continued to rage, but as Ella's presence anchored him, he found the winds of doubt beginning to calm. In that moment he decided to lean into the turmoil feeding his fear. "What do the stories say about people like me?" he ventured, his voice a quiet challenge to his own insecurities. "The ones who have been broken by their past." Ella's expression shifted, as if she were searching for a specific tale among the vast treasures of her imagination. "They say the bravest ones have to dig deeper to find who they really are. It's like digging for treasure, but sometimes it's hidden under a lot of dirt." Her innocent comparison made him smirk despite the weight of his irony. He wasn't a treasure hunter. He was a marine haunted by shadows. And what if there's nothing good underneath? What if the treasure is just more dirt? Ella furrowed her brow, her youthful wisdom juxtaposed against his grown-up doubts. "Then you just keep digging. What if the dirt is the key to understanding your treasure? Sometimes things we think are bad help us find what's really important." He blinked at her, the truth of her words slamming against his defenses like a battering ram. Perhaps this child could comprehend the depths of his struggle better than he himself could. That realization filled him with equal parts hope and apprehension. Was he ready to uncover the layers of himself that he'd hidden for so long? His heart began to race. A reluctant flame flickered in his chest, illuminating a path obscured by years of grief and unresolved anger. The thought of confronting his memories loomed over him, daunting yet inviting. Would the stories he'd buried provide insight, or would they pull him deeper into despair? "Ella," he started, steadying his voice, "if I were to dig into these memories, what should I look for?" "Look for the adventures, the ones that made you laugh or cry or feel any of those big feelings. My dad says those are the most important ones, she replied earnestly, her small hands gesturing as if she were flinging the remnants of his insecurity away. Her perspective made him reflect on his memories, not just the shadows but the vibrant colors that might exist within the darker narratives. Were there moments of joy, stories of triumph he could salvage from the wreckage of his past? He imagined his father, eyes twinkling with enthusiasm as he shared tales of bravery, laughter, and love. A wall built of years of silence began to crack. Maybe there were buried lessons waiting to surface, if only he dared to excavate them. I want that, he confessed, the words heavy with conviction. I want to remember those moments. Then let's start now, she chirped, unabashedly enthusiastic. What was the best adventure you ever went on with him? The question hung in the air, pulling at the corners of his memory, spurring something dormant within. It felt both exhilarating and terrifying. With a tentative smile, Lucas began to recount the tales, dipping into his past while sharing fragments of who he once was. With each word, it felt as if light was slowly seeping into the dark corners of his soul. Ella listened intently, her wide eyes absorbing every detail, her laughter a soothing balm against his scars. Yet, even amidst the warmth of the story, unease coiled in the pit of his stomach. What if the stories ultimately led him back to the root of his pain? The possibility loomed like a storm cloud, tensing the air between them. His voice wavered as another thought crossed his mind, a question he hadn't considered until now. What if I find things I wish I hadn't? Ella paused, her little face a map of contemplation. Then you'll know they're part of you, but they don't have to be who you are. Just like dirt. Good dirt helps plants grow. A heartbeat raced in his chest. Could that understanding truly help him sift through the rubble of his past? As he exchanged a look with Ella, the world outside darkened with the raging storm. Yet inside, a flicker of hope ignited. As Lucas spun more stories, he realized that while his memories were fragmented and fearsome, they could also be powerful catalysts for transformation. He could redefine himself, but as silence draped over them, the questions tangled deeper in his mind, hinting at choices he wasn't prepared for. What if facing the truth about his past opened wounds he had long since fled? Would this quest for understanding offer him strength, or would it unravel him completely? With renewed determination, he mirrored Ella's earlier conviction. He would dig deeper, no matter the pain that awaited. And as the storm raged on outside, he felt the winds of his own change beginning to stir. What buried truth could he confront next, and would it be the key to his reconciliation with the past? As Lucas delved further into his memories, stoking the fires of nostalgia and fear, he felt as though he were navigating a labyrinth with no clear exit. Each recollection brought forth a visceral array of emotions, joy intertwined with sorrow, laughter mingling with regret. The more he shared with Ella, the harder it became to differentiate between his past self and the man he wanted to become. With every story, he chipped away at the stone facade he'd built around his heart. There was this one time, he began, the words faltering at first. My father took me camping, just the two of us. He could picture the sun-drenched forest, the aromas of pine and earth swirling around them, offering a stark contrast to the internal storm his memories conjured. The thrill of adventure and the warmth of the campfire ignited something within him, a flicker of the carefree boy he once was. I remember he taught me how to fish, and after hours of waiting I caught this massive trout. We celebrated like we'd won a war, Lucas said, chuckling softly. Ella's eyes widened, eager for more. What did you do next? We grilled it over the fire, and it was the most delicious meal I'd ever had, mostly because we'd earned it together, he continued, savoring the moment. Yet beneath the surface, shadows began to creep in. What had that joy and connection cost him? What had he lost since then? I'll never forget the stories he told as we sat by the fire. Tales of bravery, of resilience, Lucas said, each word slowly weaving together in a painful tapestry. He made everything sound so easy, like facing the world was an adventure. Ella's gaze was unwavering. You can still be brave, Lucas. The weight of her assertion hung in the air, a truth he knew resided within him, yet remained unexplored. But what if bravery means confronting the mistakes, the failures? He countered, the confidence in his tone wavering. Then you can fix them, she insisted, undeterred as if it were that simple. Like fixing a fishing line when it tangles. You keep trying until it works again. In that moment, Lucas realized the intricacy of the ties binding him to his father, tales of courage and laughter infused with silence of things left unsaid. Yet still, lurking in the shadows were the darker stories, the fallout of his past, and the remnants of guilt that he had yet to confront. What exactly had he failed to acknowledge? Each new thought felt like another layer waiting to be peeled back. As Ella urged him on, he felt the storm outside echo his internal turmoil. The fury of thunder and rain mirrored the doubts that threatened to overtake him. What if digging through those memories just reveals more darkness? Lucas questioned, feeling the knot of anxiety tighten in his chest. What if it's all tangled and impossible to unravel? You're already brave just by talking about it, Ella said, her voice firm and unwavering. The best treasures are always hidden deep, remember. Her innocence mixed with wisdom forced Lucas to confront the truth he had buried deep within. The recognition that failure was part of growth. But could he summon the courage to look beyond the dirt and dust he feared? Casting a furtive glance at the necklace in his hand, the charm cool against his skin, Lucas pondered a new path forward, embracing not just the joy of his past, but also the complexities. Perhaps the quest for truth was his to orchestrate, one story at a time. I think I need to write these down, he said suddenly, a new idea crackling to life within him, a sense of purpose emerging from the chaos. Sort them out. Confront them. Ella nodded enthusiastically. Yes, that's the best adventure yet. You'll see what you find, she said, her childlike excitement igniting a newfound resolve in Lucas. Yet as their laughter danced through the air, beneath it lingered the anxiety of the deeper struggle already brewing within. The journey ahead felt daunting, like standing at the edge of a swirling abyss. And yet, for the first time in a long while, Lucas felt ready for the challenge. But would he be prepared to face the truths lying ahead, those that might threaten to tear him apart? With each tentative step he took toward confronting who he had been, the questions loomed larger. What depths would he plunge into next, and could they ultimately lead to salvation or destruction? Lucas sat in the stillness of his dimly lit room, surrounded by the thick silence that wrapped around him like a forgotten blanket. The rain continued to pour outside, each drop striking the window with a soft thud, but it couldn't drown out the chaos brewing inside him. He had taken a step forward, but the weight of his memories threatened to cascade over him like an avalanche. He took a deep breath and pulled open the notebook he had set aside. Blank pages stared back, stark reminders of everything he had kept hidden within. A flicker of doubt ignited within him, threatening to stifle the newfound determination he had felt just moments ago. What if he opened this Pandora's box, only to find himself drowning in regret? He needed to confront those memories, to explore their shadows without the light of hope blinking out. As he grasped the pen tightly, Lucas realized something critical. It wasn't just about reliving the memories. It was about unearthing what they taught him, the truths veiled beneath layers of sadness. He scribbled the title, Fishing for Truths, at the top of the page and hesitated. In that moment, the tangled web of anxiety confronted him, and the familiar urge to retreat into silence clawed at his resolve. But Ella's words echoed in his mind, a steady whisper. The best treasures are always hidden deep. He couldn't let fear win. With a shaky hand, he began to write, forcing himself to articulate the vivid memory of fishing with his father, the triumph of catching that trout, the warmth of their shared laughter. As the words flowed, so did the memories. He painted a picture of the lake shimmering under the sun, the buzz of excitement that had swelled between him and his father. He pressed on, letting the recollections wash over him. Yet with that joy came a tumult of other emotions, the disappointment of expectations unfulfilled, the heaviness of unresolved conversations, the pain of absence that grew sharper with each line. Suddenly, an image struck him. A moment from years later when he and his father had argued fiercely over life choices. Lucas recounted the heat of the words exchanged, the cacophony of disappointment ringing still in his ears. That day felt like a funeral for the bond they used to share and pushed Lucas away, leaving jagged scars etched deep into his heart. He found himself spiraling into those memories. Each recollection was both a blessing and a curse, offering him glimpses of cherished moments while casting shadows of grief across their remnants. Would his father be proud of the man he could become, or would he only see the son who failed to live up to expectations? Those questions gnawed at his resolve, yet the act of committing them to paper felt liberating, like lifting weights off his chest with every stroke of the pen. He paused, his heart racing as the realization hit him. Confronting the past wouldn't erase it. The weight of his father's expectations might never fade, but perhaps there was a way to redefine his narrative. He could honor his father's memory and build upon it, construct something fresh from the decay of his past choices. Lucas closed his notebook, feeling slightly lighter as he recognized a newfound determination growing within. He had taken his first steps into the labyrinth of his psyche, and with each memory revisited, he sensed the strength to confront others that awaited, those darker, buried moments he had been so afraid to face. But the looming question nagged at him. Was he truly prepared to dig deeper into the darkness, to sift through the rubble of his failures for the hope of rebuilding something new? With a mix of anticipation and trepidation, Lucas realized the next step in his journey awaited him, one that would require more courage than he had ever summoned before. What revelations would rise from the depths, and could he truly unfurl the hidden layers of his own inadequacies to emerge renewed? His heart clenched at the thought, pushing him toward the precipice where answers lay. Lucas's resolve hardened, mirroring the patter of the rain as it turned to a relentless downpour. He felt the need to explore deeper, to confront the darkness within him that flickered like a dying flame. With each turn of thought, the shadows of his past began to take shape, demanding attention. He returned to his notebook, flipping to a fresh page that seemed to beckon him to continue. The ink flowed from the pen as he recounted another critical moment, one he had subconsciously avoided. The day he chose to abandon his dreams of being an artist, coerced by the whispering insecurities fed by years of disappointment. The reasons felt dull and worn, yet they flickered with the intensity of an old flame. His father's voice reverberated in the back of his mind, laden with unfulfilled expectations and a passion for practicality. "What will you do with that?" his father had asked, scoffing at the idea painted so brightly in his son's heart. "Art can't pay the bills." The words had cut deep, swirling around him like a frigid wind as Lucas put away the brushes. He could still remember the dull ache that accompanied every canvas abandoned. He had traded vibrancy for stability, chipped away at his dreams until nothing remained but a shadow of who he might have been. In the quiet of his room, those realizations shattered the silence, creaking around him like old floorboards. Lucas could practically feel the weight of his earlier self pressing down at his shoulders, suffocating any inklings of creativity he had left. Yet what began as despair began to morph into something unexpected, a flicker of defiance. Perhaps the stillness of the room was not an end, but the quiet before a storm of revelation. Drawing a deep breath, Lucas recalled the late nights spent sketching in secret, the way he had craved to express his thoughts through brushstrokes. Each drawing was a piece of him left unloved, stashed away to gather dust. However, as he put ink to paper now, that silence transformed, morphing into a canvas of clarity. "I allowed fear to dictate my choices," he wrote fervently, his hand racing across the page. For the first time, readers of the future would witness his truth, how he had traded his voice for conformity. What if embracing those sketches could free him from the oppressive grip of regret? Each stroke he now practiced through writing echoed with determination, forging a path toward reclaiming the artistry he once held dear. Yet, as invigorating as this realization felt, doubt crept in like a chill. Would the world even welcome back this artist he had forsaken? Was it too late to reclaim his narrative? These questions bled into the ink as he continued scribbling, the weight of his past and hopes for the future colliding on the page. The rain outside began to taper. Lucas stared at the puddles forming outside, each one a distorted reflection of a world he felt disconnected from. It felt like the perfect metaphor for his life. Trapped, unable to break free from the layers of his choices. Then he remembered Ella's last words before she left. You'll never know until you try. Would he try to reconnect with his lost self? He sat back, glancing at the empty canvas where his future stood, ready for him to take a brush and paint anew. But the turmoil within him wasn't done yet. He felt the stirrings of people from his past, the colleagues who had leaned towards practicality, his father who had wanted security. Could he truly step away from their shadows to embrace this emerging vision of himself? As he contemplated these questions, a sense of urgency ignited within him. The time had come to rediscover who he was, the artist buried beneath layers of expectations. He needed to confront each person and each moment that loomed large in his decision to walk away from his dreams. With powerful resolve, Lucas closed the notebook, knowing that the chapters he could write next would determine how brightly his true self could shine. Outside, the rain stilled, but within, the storm was only beginning. Was he ready to confront his past choices, to reach out and connect with the parts of himself he had abandoned? He understood one thing. The journey of unveiling the artist within him was fraught with challenges, and it was only now, standing on the precipice of renewal, that he could gather the courage to leap. What echoed on the horizon was not just his father's voice, it was the haunting possibility of unearthing the artist waiting to emerge. The question loomed larger. Could Lucas truly reclaim the brush to paint his future? Lucas woke up the next morning feeling the weight of the previous night's reflections pressing down on him more than ever. It was the quiet before dawn, the world still wrapped in darkness, but inside him flickered a renewed flame of determination. He rose from the bed and walked to the window, peering through the droplets of condensation clinging to the glass. The rain of yesterday had transformed into a blanket of snow, softening the harsh edges of his surroundings. As he sipped his morning coffee, he replayed the conversations that had colored his past. The harsh reprimands from his father echoed like a relentless drumbeat in his mind, insisting on the mantra that practicality trumped passion. Yet there was another voice, Ella's, whispering possibility. You'll never know until you try. A simmering challenge stirred within him. Would he truly allow the shadows of doubt to dictate his choices, or would he step into the light of potential? With an electric surge of resolve, he retrieved the notebook and began writing again, this time focusing on what he needed to confront. He drafted a list, his father's doubts, the peers who snickered at artistic pursuits, the moments of self-betrayal that left scars unseen. Each name and memory brought forth a vivid image of what it meant to silence the artist inside. Lucas stood, the thrill of action coursing through him. He needed to gather his sketches, the solitary expressions he had mapped out over the years. For too long, they had been buried in the recesses of his mind, hidden away, forgotten. Their revival felt pivotal, a powerful first step in reclaiming his artistic voice. Gathering his materials felt like a physical act of defiance against the complacency that had clouded his existence. He moved to a corner of his small apartment, clearing space on the floor. As he spread out the sketches, a wave of nostalgia washed over him. Each piece reflected fragments of his soul, some raw, some incomplete, all begging to be acknowledged. Lucas took a deep breath, allowing his heart to pitter-patter in anticipation. The storm inside him was transforming. It was no longer a cacophony of confusion, but a symphony of potential. The snow slowly melted outside, revealing patches of earth, a metaphor for the thawing within himself. But anxiety tinged his excitement. What if he faced opposition from the very people he wished to confront? What if his father dismissed his aspirations once more, shrugging them off as childish nonsense? Each scenario played out in Lucas's mind, sending chills through his spine. But he also felt a burgeoning sense of empowerment, anchoring him in purpose. Was his journey merely about painting again, or was it more profound? He needed to articulate how silence had muffled his true self and what it would take to amplify his voice. Reclaiming the artist within would require honesty, both with himself and those who had influenced his path. As he wrapped up his sketches, Lucas decided it was time to reconnect with his past, investigate the fears and judgments he had carried. He resolved to confront his father. There was no turning back now. He needed to make his intentions clear. But as Lucas gathered the sketches and prepared to push forward, a realization hit him. This confrontation would not merely be an external battle against his father's expectations, but an internal struggle to articulate his worthiness as an artist. Would he succeed in breaking through the barriers? Could he convey the urgency of his quest to be seen again as an artist? With the snow still falling outside, lucidity sharpened his focus. It was time to step into the world, canvas in hand. The stakes were high. The moment had arrived to face the person who had unknowingly contributed to his silence. What if this confrontation transformed his father's views instead? Perhaps there lay hidden beneath the hardened shell of pragmatism a flicker of understanding waiting to be ignited. Lucas closed his notebook, realizing that he was no longer a boy hiding behind excuses. He was an artist poised to reclaim his narrative. Could he emerge from the shadows and truly embrace the path ahead, no matter how daunting? The prospect of change loomed large, and as he gazed out at an endless expanse of white, he felt the urge to leap into the unknown. Would this leap begin the transformation he yearned for, or would it be yet another brush with disappointment? The sound of footsteps crunching against the thick layer of snow pulled Lucas from his thoughts. He squinted into the frosty gloom, spotting a neighbor he barely knew trudging past, bundled against the chill. For a brief moment, envy flickered through him. This person, someone who likely didn't grapple with the weight of unfulfilled dreams, moved with purpose, unburdened by internal conflict. But as quickly as that thought came, Lucas shut it down. Today was not for comparisons, it was for action. He felt the curves of his sketches beneath his fingers, their edges crinkled from neglect, like memories longing to resurface. Each stroke of charcoal and ink represented fragments of his artistic identity, a voice clamoring for a platform in a world that valued pragmatism over passion. His heart raced at the thought of sharing those pieces, not just with his father but with the world. Once more, he considered the upcoming confrontation with his father. Would his father's rigid expectations hold sway over his new resolve? Lucas steeled himself, determined to soften the edges of that looming figure in his mind. He envisioned their conversation not as a battlefield, but as an opportunity for connection, a chance to share both vulnerability and talent. With renewed determination, he bent to his sketches, meticulously choosing pieces to showcase. Each artwork was a statement, a dialogue awaiting an audience, and he wanted his father to truly see him within them. "These are me," he whispered, feeling the words resonate within his chest. "This is my truth." He meticulously arranged the sketches on his table, highlighting his growth as an artist and the journey he had undertaken to reach this moment. Each drawing had a story, each line heaved with emotion. But what if that emotional weight fell flat when faced with skepticism? The idea burrowed deep, igniting anxiety. How could he articulate that inner turmoil to someone who seemed locked in another realm of understanding? Drawing a deep breath, Lucas picked up a few sketches and placed them aside, now fretting that they didn't quite reflect the urgency he felt. The moment of truth was edging closer, and the power dynamic tinged the atmosphere with its weight. He caught himself spiraling, doubting, spiraling through artistic integrity and self-worth. Moments cascaded over him like falling snowflakes, each an exhilarating blend of fear and hope. What would happen if he opened that door? Would an avalanche of unspoken words tumble out, burying him under an avalanche of implications? An artist was vulnerable by nature. Everyone became aware of this truth in their own way. The question was, could he endure the descent that might come with it? As he prepared to leave his apartment, Lucas took one last look around. Each object, the paintbrushes lying in wait, the empty canvas leaning against the wall, seemed to cheer him on, rallying against uncertainty. This could be the breakthrough he had yearned for, or it could lead him back to the very fears he'd battled against his entire life. A sudden clap of thunder rumbled in the distance, shaking his resolve. He paused, heart racing. Was he really ready for this? It was no longer just about confronting his father. It was also a test of everything he had rekindled within himself. The door creaked open, and Lucas stepped into the brisk air, the cold biting yet exhilarating against his skin. The world around him felt both foreign and familiar as he navigated the snow-covered streets toward his destination. Each step was heavier than the last, yet each also carried newfound purpose. He was reclaiming not only his artist's voice, but a part of his story that had long been silenced. As he reached the corner of his street, determination surged through him. This is a meeting of reckoning, he thought, mental images flashing of his father's stern face, the same face that had once belittled his dreams, but also held the potential to understand. What awaited him on the other side of that confrontation? Would he uncover the genuine communication he had always longed for, or would the past again envelope him in layers of misunderstanding and disappointment? He pressed forward, the weight of the moment thrumming through him, bracing for impact. Lucas stood at the edge of his father's property, hesitating for a moment as doubts flared within him. The gray, snow-draped house loomed ahead, a shell of memories and unspoken words, both familiar and distant. Today was different. Today marked the culmination of his transformation. He took a deep breath, the frigid air filling his lungs like a crisp new beginning. Lucas had spent the past weeks sifting through his past, reclaiming his identity as an artist, and he finally felt ready to confront the expectations that had weighed him down for so long. The sketches tucked neatly under his arm represented not just the talent he once feared to express, but the man he aspired to become. As he approached the door, a flicker of nervous energy surged through him. Would his father understand? Would he see the work behind each stroke, the passion ignited within every line? Or would he resort to the same old dismissals that had hidden his true self beneath layers of self-doubt? Steeling himself, Lucas knocked. The reverberation was louder than he expected, echoing like a clarion call. Time stretched with uncertainty until the door creaked open, revealing his father's familiar figure, weathered yet sturdy. Beneath the weight of years, Lucas could still see the flicker of pride mixed with concern. Lucas. His father's brow furrowed. What brings you here? Dad, can we talk? The words emerged steadier than he felt, filling the silence with tangible purpose. They moved into the living room, the warmth enveloping him with its gentleness. This had been a place of laughter, of bonding, and also a stage for the descent that sparked his retreat into self-imposed silence. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Lucas began, his voice steadying as he set the sketches on the table between them. Each piece represented not just creativity, but the emotional journey he had undertaken, unearthing forgotten memories that demanded to be honored. These are my drawings, my stories. His father's gaze darted to the sketches, curiosity piqued. Lucas's heart thudded louder with each passing moment, daring him to breach the walls they had constructed over the years. My art matters, Dad, Lucas continued, propelled by an inner fire. All the while I've allowed my fears to dictate what I could pursue. But these pieces, he gestured to the sketches, represent who I am. They tell my story. The room hung heavy with silence, laden with memories both cherished and criticized. His father studied the art, furrowing his brow, a whirlpool of emotions swaying between pride and disappointment. What do you mean, who you are? His father's voice carried an edge, as if bracing for impact. You have potential in a far more traditional route. I know, Lucas replied, unwavering. But living in fear of not meeting your expectations or societal standards has kept me from living authentically. I've denied a part of myself, the artist I used to be, the artist I still want to be. The walls around them seemed to close in momentarily, a tension swirling in the air. But as Lucas took a steadying breath, he felt a wave of conviction wash over him. I want your support, Dad. For once, I want to pursue this without the chains of guilt or shame. With that vulnerable declaration, he felt the storm of tension begin to yield, and he watched for signs of his father's response. The older man's demeanor softened, and the lines on his forehead deepened as he frowned in contemplation. Lucas, I just wanted the best for you, he murmured, his voice almost a whisper. I know, Lucas countered, kindness emanating from within. I want the best for myself, too. That means reclaiming my passion and embracing who I am. A prolonged silence filled the space, both men wrestling with emotions long buried. When his father finally spoke, his voice trembled. I'm sorry if I've held you back. I wanted you to avoid the pain of struggling. Lucas felt a breakthrough ignite in that moment, a recognition of shared burden laid bare between them. But evolving means facing that pain, Dad. Understanding it, and using it to become something greater. There was a shift in the room, a dawning realization drawn from years of misunderstanding. The complexities of their relationship unspooled before them, bridging the gap they'd held steadfastly. "I want you to chase your dreams," his father said, his voice growing stronger. "But promise me, no matter what, you'll keep writing. Keep expressing your voice." Tears prickled at the corners of Lucas's eyes. It was as if a dam had burst, releasing the flood of connection and understanding he had yearned for. "I will, Dad. I promise." They shared a moment of quiet affirmation, the air churning with renewal. The sketches were more than just art. They had served as the catalyst for transformation, paving the way to reconciliation and support. As Lucas packed away the sketches, pride blossomed within him. He had taken an important step forward, confronting both his own fears and winning a degree of understanding from his father. Together they began to navigate uncharted waters, finally cherishing an essential bond that would forge a path into the future. Through this process, Lucas had proven to himself that it was possible to confront and redefine past narratives. He emerged not just as a son fighting through expectations, but as an artist willing to embrace the chaos and beauty of his journey, confident, competent, and at last, ready to reclaim his voice in the world. With a solid grip on his own identity and a newfound understanding of his father, Lucas felt a bright horizon beckoning. The path ahead shone vibrantly, illuminating the colorful canvases and stories yet to be created. Don't wait even one more second to share this transformative story with your friends who need inspiration. You need to subscribe now to our channel and leave a like now to support more empowering stories that speak to the heart of overcoming. Comment your thoughts on Lucas's journey and share your reactions below. Join us as we continue to explore the essence of transformation and resilience. This is the moment to show your support.